A very good afternoon to all those who have joined this program. On behalf of our Director Dr. Mandana Prasad and the members of Lecture Organizing Committee, I, Dr. Ransi Paul Matthews, welcome you all to BSIP's online lecture series organized to celebrate the Platinum Jubilee year of our Institute Foundation and Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, marking 75 years of our independence. Owing to the current pandemic situation, all of us are bound to follow the protocols and precautionary measures everywhere, including our research activities. Consequently, this lecture series is also organized on a virtual platform that is being shared live now. On this auspicious time, we take this opportunity to specially welcome our honorable speaker for the first lecture in the series, one of the eminent geoscientists in the country and a guru to all of us, Professor Ashok Sahni. Thank you, sir, for your presence and gracing today's function. I also welcome all the respected guests, retired and working scientists, scholars, and all BSIP members to this function. Now I request Ms. Rimpi Chetia, research scholar, to take the seat and carry forward the rest of the program.
Thank you, sir. As we all know, we are celebrating the Platinum Jubilee of BSIP this year, which also coincides with the 75 years of independence of India. We request our director, Dr. Vandana Prasad, to grace the occasion with her words. Welcome, ma'am, for that.
Good afternoon, everybody. And we are celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, Platinum Jubilee of Institute. And it's really nice, and we are very happy that Professor Ashok Sahni, he agreed to deliver a lecture on Professor Jubilee and his scientific journey. This is a very suitable topic, and I know that many of us, especially our younger generation, they don't know much about Professor Jubilee, how he carried his studies and how he started his journey in this botany. So it is really nice, and I was talking to many of students, and they are all of them, they are looking forward for this talk. So this 1 week we are going to celebrate, and with a lot of activities will take place during this 10 days period. And we are going to have international conference also. We are going to release our first volume of Journal of Paleosciences. A documentary is also prepared for this purpose. And so we would like to, if pandemic was not there, we would have actually celebrated this event in a much bigger manner. But by seeing the condition now, we have to restrict to it mostly to this online mode. So I'll not take much time because everybody now looking forward to Professor Ashok Sahni's talk, and it's thank you so much to agree to deliver this talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. It is an honor and pleasure for us that we have Professor Ashok Sahni with us gracing this function as guest speaker. I would like to now provide a brief introduction of Professor Ashok Sahni. Professor Ashok Sahni is currently Professor Emeritus, Punjab University, Chandigarh, and former ONGC Chair Professor 2017 to 2020. He obtained his PhD in geology from the University of Minneapolis, USA in 1968, and returned to India to work in the universities of Lucknow and Chandigarh. He is a fellow and associate of several prestigious scientific academies and societies, including the Third World Academy at Trieste, Italy, Humboldt Foundation, Germany, Associate, Stranger Geological Society, France, Paris, Honorary MSVP, USA, and also a fellow of all the Indian Science Academies. He has been associated with several UNESCO IGCT projects as national and international leader. He has worked at the American Museum of Natural History, New York, National Museum of Natural History, Washington, D.C., and taught as a visiting professor at the Bonn University, Germany. He has 11 articles in Science and Nature from 1979 to 2014. Currently, he is consultant to the Evolution Park and Gallery at Science City, Kapurthala, and established the Dinosaur of India Gallery at Sector 10, Chandigarh Museum. He is a recipient of the Insar G.N. Wardia Medal 2009 for his contributions to earth sciences. In 2011, he was awarded the prestigious Lifetime Achievement National Geoscience Award 2009 by the Ministry of Mines, Government of India. In 2014, the Microscope Society of India conferred upon him a Lifetime Achievement Award. More recently, in 2020, he was awarded the Lifetime Excellence Award by the Ministry of Earth Science. He has nearly 9,000 citations to his name. With this brief introduction, without further ado, I would like to invite Professor Ashok Sahni to deliver his talk on Professor Birbal Sahni and his journey. A humble request to the audience: if you have any question, you can write it down in the chat box. After the talk, these questions will be provided to Professor Ashok Sahni by Dr. Murtakai one by one, and he will. Professor Sahni, you may please share your computer screen for the presentation.
Thank you very much for the introduction. First of all, I would like to thank the director and all those organizers who have issued this invitation to me. I am deeply honored. If he could see the progress that the Institute has made in the last 75 years, the direction that it has taken, and the quality of publications, I am sure that Birbal Sahni, Professor Birbal Sahni, would be extremely pleased. Today, I'm going to be speaking about Birbal Sahni, his work, but as a family insider, I will start by talking about the family, his father, how he got into science, and how he excelled in science. I start with the first slide. This is an iconic slide that, in the sense that if you look very closely at the base where the roots are, you will see a small BS. So Birbal Sahni actually, I think, I'm not sure, but since I found it in his papers, I think he's the one who made the drawing, who painted it. And this is actually, if I'm not mistaken, again, it's published as a PAL Indica in the geological, by the Geological Survey of India. This specimen, this whole Williamsonia was very dear to him. I start now by taking you back to Pakistan. So there's a small medieval town known as Bhera. Bhera here. It's on the banks of the Jhelum River, and it has been around for nearly 700-800 years. And it's this old town has many mohallas. One of these mohallas is known as the Sahni Mohalla. And this photograph was taken by somebody in 2006. So the mohalla is still around. This is where the Sahni family, when it was in Pakistan, this was the home base. Bhera has actually has done a lot for science. If you look below, you'll see that it was the birthplace of 2 fellows of the Royal Society of London and 4 founding fellows of the Indian Academy of Sciences. Of the 4 founding fellows, 3 were my family: my grandfather, my uncle, and my father. And as far as the 2 fellows of the Royal Society, this was, of course, Birbal Sahni and Dr. Professor S.S. Bhatnagar. So Professor Bhatnagar also, he was, as I will tell you later on, they lived in Bhera, and this is the start of the story. My grandfather, that is the father of Birbal Sahni, he was born in 1863, and basically they were merchants. They bought and sold wheat, wool, majit, and they produced, it was a red coloring material. And there was also some money lending business on the side. So this is basically what a merchant family did in those days, and they were no different. If you look at this slide, you'll see that there were 5 brothers and 4 sisters, and this is a very sad occasion actually. All the brothers came when their mother died, and this is the only photograph that I know in which all the brothers are there. I will just tell you, if you look, this is from the eldest, Bikramjit. He was a physician, a doctor. Then Birbal, then the Bar at Law, Bodhraj Sahni, then my father, and the youngest was Manohar Lal, who was a rubber technologist. But the interesting thing is, there are two or three interesting things. One is that all the children of Ruchi Ram Sahni, here he is, and my grandmother Ishwari Devi, they all went to England to do their higher studies. Now this was a big feat. I'm talking about early 19th century. So right from the start, first my eldest uncle went, and then the others followed. So the point is that in order to educate their sons in England at some of the best schools that were available there, you had to be a wealthy man. And as you'll see, that Ruchi Ram was not only a professor of chemistry, but he put his expertise into business. So he started a sulfuric acid factory in Lahore, and he also did business in making scientific instruments. And he made so much money that he was able to educate all his sons and all his daughters. And one of them, I forget now which one it is, but one of his daughters was the first graduate from Punjab University. So as you can see, this was exceptional, and it was only because of my grandfather and the fact that he was nearly good at everything that he did. And that is the base that allowed all his sons to get one of the best educations that was possible in the early part of the 20th century in England. He was a very strong man, and there are very few people who did actually what he did. When he was in high school, he embraced Brahmo Samaj, and his mother was so angry that she never entered his home again. But Dr. S.S. Bhatnagar's family was also Brahmo Samaji, and that is why there was a very close relationship between the Sahnis and the Bhatnagars in Bhera and in Lahore. While I'm on the subject, he changed his religion once again. In fact, he changed it once or twice, and he became a Sikh. And while becoming a Sikh, he wrote one of the first books that put the spotlight on Sikh shrines. And so it's a historical piece. So a little bit about him. He was the first Indian meteorologist. He joined the Met Department in Simla 1985 as second assistant Met reporter, and his age at that time was 21 years, 10 months. So, these days you have to be a certain age and you have to do a lot of things. But in those days, if you were good enough and you were talented enough, people used to spot you, and irrespective of your age, you were given responsibility. He did something again that people don't usually do. He moved from Lahore to Presidency College, Kolkata, and worked there with Professor A. Pedler, who was a FRS. He was a chemist, and he was allowed to take classes in physics and chemistry. When he joined as a meteorologist, he was given the sole responsibility of the daily weather report. You may have heard of one Blandford. This other Blandford, H.F. Blandford, was Blandford's brother. Blandford's brother, that is H.F. Blandford, was the chief meteorologist in India during that time. At that particular point of time, his duty was to evaluate the reports from 120 stations. Mind you, this is 1885 in undivided India and Burma. And in doing so, he successfully predicted a mega cyclone, the coast of Orissa and Bengal and Andhra. They are always beset with cyclones. He successfully predicted at the age of about 22 years that a cyclone was coming. He gave it on his own initiative, saving many lives. So he was obviously scolded by Blandford and others for not asking them, but they were not there in Simla at that time. And later on, of course, they agreed that what he did was a great service. He was a professor of chemistry in Government College, Lahore. But as I said, he was a very strong man. And once it happened that a very junior English professor, a professor of chemistry who happened to be an Englishman, he superseded him. So at that point of time, Professor Ruchiram Sahni decided that enough was enough. At that point of time, 1914, his elder son, Birbal Sahni, was in England, and it doesn't happen very often, but his son welcomed his father when he set foot in England in 1914. This is the other brother, Godhraj, who was the advocate. So it was a real family affair, two brothers and the father. And the father joined one of the most prestigious physics departments at that time. And that was the physics department at the University of Manchester. And just look, he wrote a paper communicated by Sir Ernest Rutherford, and the paper was about the photographic action of alpha, beta, and gamma rays. Now, I'll tell you the significance of this. By the way, those of you who are interested in physics, you'll be happy to know that he acknowledged Niels Bohr in acknowledgements in this paper. And the reason that I'm telling you is that why did he choose photographic action? Well, it so happened that in 2016, in the residence of Birbal Sahni, they found photos of this on which the paper was based. This is actually Birbal Sahni's handwriting. So these photographs were found accidentally in the Birbal Sahni residence. And these are actually the traces of the alpha beta particles, and they're preserved in Birbal Sahni's residence. Now, Birbal Sahni, I think, maybe I'm speculating, he was a very good photographer. And it may be, it's just possible, I'm speculating, that when some research project came up at Rutherford's lab, Ruchiram Sahni suggested that he would like to do this photographic emulsion to track the thing. Maybe Birbal Sahni had a hand. There's no way I can tell, but the fact that you have in his own handwriting these pictures that were taken in 2014, 1914, in 1914 at his residence, means that there may be a connection. So the children's education, the 5 brothers and the 4 sisters, it was no formal schooling. The only one who went to school was Birbal. He went to Mission and Central Model School, Lahore. All the rest of the children, they studied at home. They had teachers who came home to teach them Shakespearean grammar. So they had Urdu, English, Sanskrit, the Hitopadesh, mathematics, chemistry, biological sciences. And this is my father's autobiography. He mentions the books that were there in the house. Darwin's Origin of Species, the works of Herbert Spencer and Henry Huxley, astronomy, then all these William Shakespeare, Charles Dickens, all the books that were popular at that time, they were available in the house. So apart from Birbal, all the other children had no formal schooling. At the age of, I think he was 19, either he was about 19 or 20, he got admission into Emmanuel College, Cambridge. This is Emmanuel College, 1911 years. He was born in 1891, so he would be about 20. And he took natural sciences. As you can see, I'll go back to that. This is a certificate maintained at Emmanuel College, which shows that he's done his high school from India in 1911, and then his natural science tripos 1 and 2 in 1913 and 1915. And then, of course, he got the SCD degree from Cambridge. Just a little bit about Birbal Sahni. I'll just give you a timeline. So when the event happens, you can match them together. I've told you about the schooling. In 1909, he did intermediate science, topped the province in Sanskrit. Sanskrit never left him till he died, and he was always very proficient in Sanskrit sloks, given the occasion. In 1911, Government College, he came under the influence of the botanist, of the great botanist, Professor S.R. Keshav. Then, as I've said, 1913-15, the natural science triposes. Then BSc he did from University of London. And 19, I'm not sure. There were a lot of things happening in 1920, so I guess he may have come in 1919. He was appointed professor at BHU, stayed there for some time. Then later he was appointed professor at Punjab University, Lahore. In 1920, as I said, it was a very busy year for him. He married Savitri Suri, Savitri Sahni, as she came to be known after marriage. In 1921, he was appointed professor at Lucknow University in the departments of botany and geology. 1929, he got an SCD. It's like a D.Litt, it's much higher, but the University of Cambridge awards it to their distinguished alumni. In 1936, he got the Fellowship of the Royal Society. In 1949, as you know, he laid the foundation stone, was laid by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, and he unfortunately passed away very soon. His way of studying was unique. In fact, at that point of time, if you had to study a foreign language, this is, by the way, German. Both my father and my uncle, they learned German like this. There was a book prescribed, and each word then, this is actually a play. And each word, he must have used a dictionary, and each word, as you can see, is labeled. This is one way of learning a language, and both my uncle and my father were proficient in German. So there has to be some benefits of this way of learning. I still have this book, by the way. One of the things, apart from his association with Professor Keshav, that propelled him into botany was that his father and his brothers used to go every summer. They used to go for traverses in the high Himalaya. I'm talking about 1907, 1911. So right now, the people even now don't walk. They used to walk. There was no bus or anything there. It was a question of trekking. So they trekked to many places. 1907, Pathankot, Rohtang, then Narkanda, Burun Pass, Chini, Srinagar, Amarnath, Bachoi Glacier, and then 1920 again with Professor Keshav. But whenever he went, or wherever he went, this book was always with him. Booker's Flora of British India. And my father says that, as you can see, as soon as some botanical specimen was identified, some of these are deposited at Kew Gardens, but he was very excited. It's like when I find a good fossil, I get excited. Well, when he found a new plant, he used to get equally excited. And so a number of his collections made from 1907 to 1923 and later. Some of them are in the Kew Gardens. Now, just to talk about paleobotany and paleosciences, at that point of time, even though there was no special distinction, the barriers that we have built into science did not exist in the early part of the 20th century. A physicist or a chemist had equal opportunity to study the atom. It was not that he was a physicist, so he should study it. There was nothing like that. It is only these boundaries, these barriers of this is my science, that is your science, they came later on. And the best example of this is given here. This is an article by Professor Valdia on the quaternary tectonic history of Northwest Himalayas. And he starts, this is, I think, current science something. He starts by saying, Birbal Sahni's deduction that the Kashmir Himalaya did not form an effective barrier to movements of Paleolithic, Neolithic man has been amply corroborated by recent new tectonic studies. Just look at the beauty of this. He used the plants. He used the ecology of the plants found in the high Himalayas to deduce the fact of their tectonic uplift, and then deduce the fact that it was not high enough to form a barrier to for Paleolithic and Neolithic man. So how integrated can one get? We keep on quarreling about this is this, this is that, this is not mine, this is yours. But if you want to live the spirit of Birbal Sahni, this is an extreme and it's an excellent example. So there can be no better tribute than to talk of a paper that integrates so many fields of study. I'm giving you an overall overview of Birbal Sahni's research. We'll look at research for some time. So he was a great anatomist. One of the best anatomists that came, even at the time that he spent in Cambridge, they acknowledged his mastery of anatomy, botanical anatomy. Used his commanding knowledge of botany to compare anatomical features between recent fossil plants. He was able to show that recent collections made in New Caledonia in 1914 were similar to the Silotales. Isn't that a great example? So that is basically what he did. He excelled in photography and botanical techniques, and he was obsessed with precision. In his will, I have his will, I don't think it was ever executed, but somebody sent me his will. I'm going to read this out. I bequeath rupees 100 to Shankar Mistry of the Botany Department of Lucknow University as a mark of appreciation of his work in preparing fossil sections for my research work, if he survives me. Just look at that. So it's really exhilarating. So his DSc was based on his observation on how seeds were carried in conifers on the axis or on the leaf. That was in 1920. He got his FRS in 1936. And as I said, he was able to integrate several fields. I've already done that. But at that point of time, he was one of the leaders in what was known as the grand idea, Wegener's hypothesis of continental drift, especially the basis of Glossopteris, and Haeckel's theory of ontogeny. Ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. Then in 1932, he worked on Williamsonia. And as luck would have it, he got into numismatology by some of the coins that he found in Rohtak. I'll show these to you. So he had a large geological canvas. There was nothing that he did not want to do or did not do. So this is his favorite haunt on chugging away to Sahibganj. Here he is. I maybe you people can recognize these the scientists. I don't, but he was very well dressed. This is a piece of dress that is not very common in India. It's known as +4s. So he was, as you can see, immaculately dressed on the way, even though he's sitting in the coal wagon of a steam engine, but he seems to be at home. So there are many photographs of him. I can't show them all, but there's some that you may not have seen because they show another side of Birbal Sahni that you may not be aware of. After all scientists are human beings, and they have their own likes and dislikes. And so, just like anybody else, he was a very, very likable person. He played a lot with children, and they loved him dearly. I'll just show you some of his papers. This is the Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society of London. So this is a description, rare conifer, general structure of the seed-bearing apparatus in the majority of conifers. He showed the anatomical similarity, as I said, between the Caledonian plant and the Devonian Asteroxylon. Here he is. And then the reconstruction of the iconic. Here you can see. So this is another drawing, but the one that I showed you was actually published. This has the full name, B. Sahni, GSI Calcutta. Embodies the reconstruction of the first known Indian fossil cycle. So many, he had access to global collections, Siberia, Australia, South Africa. So truly international at a very young age. Well, these are some of his papers. You are paleobotanist, so I'm not going to press home this thing, just to tell you. But I would like to tell you that he was a great photographer and he was very meticulous in microphotography. So, he just wouldn't give up until he liked what he saw. He would go on and on. And that actually is the mark of a great scientist, that you're not satisfied with anything but what is not the best. And he was like one of those. And you can see, these are diagrams and figures that go back to 1910 on very primitive microscopes. Now we have all these automatic things, but in those days there was nothing. You had to really be an expert to get pictures like this. As I said, he found in 1936 coins belonging to 100 BCE. They were bronze, not copper, some iron and a little tin, which was analyzed by another iconic professor of Lucknow University, A.C. Chatterjee. They were written in the Brahmi script. They had the humped bull, Bos Indicus. And some of these are the molds. These are where the coins used to be minted. Some of them in this pack, as you can see, are still pristine. They have not left the molds. So he got very interested in coins and their history. And again, so we're coming to the end. I'd like to read a letter that my father wrote to my grandfather wrote to my father. It's very interesting. So just to tell you, this is probably written in 1927 or 1928. It says, Birbal also came from Lucknow. He is going back today. I'd like to read this out because I'm sure it's going to bring a laugh from some of you. We are not surprised that your selection has been postponed. It would not be bad if the selection were put off for a couple of months. If you could, do some more research work. And it would be nice to be able to write another paper within a couple of months. So you can imagine with a father like that, the children were bound to do very well. So this is pictures that you've already seen. This is at the foundation laying ceremony of BSIP with friends in Germany, with his wife. Pictures of his wife together. This is an iconic one in the botany department. If I know Lucknow University, I'm pretty sure that these doors haven't changed. Maybe this desk is still there. I have no idea. I'd like to end this talk by a poem that my father wrote when my uncle died. When comes the final call? Who knows the morning glow? The darkest depths of night unfold the brightest day. The ripened acorn tumbles, always but to grow. Were life and death not molded in one common clay? Thank you very much. I would like to thank again all of you. I can't see you, but I know you're there. And so thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.
Lovely talk.
Thank you, Professor Ashok Sahni, for this very informative and quite overwhelming talk. The legacy of Professor Jubilee Sahni will continue to live and inspire generations to come, especially in the earth science community in India as well as the whole globe. Is there any question?
Can we ask for any question time?
If anybody wants
If,
to know more about
Yeah, if any question from the audience, I think this time you can ask, or you can also put in chat box in a few minutes. Then if there's no question, we can proceed. If there are any questions, please just come with your question.
really nice. It's a very emotional for all of us. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I now request Dr. Mutegai to present the vote of thanks.
Yeah, it's time for saying thank you. Thank you, the listeners, first of all, for choosing to be with us. It's an honor for us that you opted to be here in the virtual platform with us instead of doing something else. Now we come to an end of the lively gathering. Before we wind up, a few words of warmth and one announcement. We hope you had all had a nice evening. On behalf of our directors, the organizing committee, and the audience, I personally thank the speaker of the day, Sahni sir, for the historically valuable information that you shared with us today. Next, one announcement, next talk in this series might be by another academician, Dr. Arunab Ghosh from Harvard University, and this will be most possibly by the 8th October evening. Thanks once again to all of you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
have a great evening, everyone. Thank you.